And I could get a little more sound than this thing, but if you can, that's great. And so, like I said, yeah, we're here. It's Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen, and it is Friday. Wow. You know, it's a funny thing. Even when people are trying to steal democracy, traffic is traffic. It's just one of those things. And it's a little more than that because it's raining a lot, which is, I guess, the reason for the traffic. Although I have to say, having been out there running around, I'm not exactly sure what the problem is that people have. But in any event, here we are. And let's see. Just looking at what I see on the board here. I assume this is all from yesterday, huh? Yeah. Okay, good. Although I suspect I will be hearing possibly from Michael because Kamala is in Arizona, which is where Michael is. So that may be coming. In the meantime, I also have Jim Maudlin coming in about a half an hour. That's one of our Trumper friends. And so he's going to talk to us about what it feels like to be on a crashing campaign. And in the next week, Amy Carter, who usually comes in with Jim, she's going to come to the studio. So she'll be in town. So all that's great. We'll have a chance to talk to some Trumpers. And in the meantime, hang on a second. Let me check to see what time it is. Oh, okay. It's about 4:14 here. And I would say that my 45-year-old Seiko might be off by about 30 seconds. So I think what I need to do is go out and buy a $100,000 Trump watch. Right. First of all, that thing probably explodes. And I'm not talking about trying to get anybody or hurt anybody. I'm just talking about once Trump puts his name on it, it probably doesn't work anymore. I know he says it's one of the greatest watches in history. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Donald. You go in the watch business from your jail cell, and by the time you get out, maybe you'll have a few extra shekels in order to go buy yourself some breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay. I don't think I'll be spending $100,000 for a Trump watch. I wouldn't spend $100,000 for any watch. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. There are some top, Rolex watch. Sure, then you're tossing. But even they don't cost. I mean, what do they cost? $20,000? $30,000? Yeah, I think I'll just eat my dog food and send in my dollar. Well, at any rate, today is Immigration Day. Kamala is down at the border, and I think Donald's going down there too. I don't know what he's looking for. He won't find it. Let's see. Okay, so now I do have Michael on here. Right. She didn't even call, Michael. Isn't that something? Michael's down there. She could have just picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Michael, drop on by." But no, she didn't. She's great, but apparently not that great. Zelensky really could have done us all a solid and choked out Trump. That's what Michael says. And, it's hardly necessary at this point, Michael, because Donald is sunk. In fact, I'll pull out my polls from the morning consult polls today, and you listen to what they're saying here. I mean, these polls are pretty good, and the funny part about it is that Eugene Robinson from the Washington Post says, and I think he's right. He says, yeah, the polls are probably wrong. They're probably wrong. And in fact, Kamala may be running far ahead of the numbers that we're seeing. She's ahead, but she may be even more drastically ahead. A lot of people always said, Trumpers wouldn't want to admit that they were voting for that lunatic. But now I think it may be the other way. I think there are probably Republicans who are afraid to admit that they're not going to have anything to do with this guy, and they're voting for Kamala. Because, there are Republicans out here who are signing letters all over the country from all different areas of expertise, and they're saying, we wouldn't vote for Donald Trump for anything. Again, Republicans. We know the Democrats aren't. And then again, there's that black vote. I cannot wait 39 days until the election. I can't wait because there are so many of my friends who insist that the black vote is shifting dramatically to Donald. And, we saw a poll the other day that said the black vote was 7% for Donald. Well, that's just right. That's right where it always is. I'm sure that's it. I've said I doubt that he'll beat 10, and he may not even get 5. We'll see. I just, like I say, 39 days, I can't wait to see that. But listen to these polls. Listen to this. Last month in Arizona, Morning Consult was tied. This month, Harris is +3. Now in Georgia, Harris was +3, and now it's tied. So there's one state where Kamala lost a little bit. In Michigan, it was +2. Now it's +3. In Nevada, it was +4. Now it's +7. Everybody's saying, no, there's no way that +7 can be true. But wouldn't that be interesting? If Nevada's +7, this election's not going to be close, but we'll see. North Carolina was tied. It is now +2 for Harris. And remember this, nobody believed that North Carolina was going to be in play. North Carolina is not only in play, it may not be in play for Donald. Pennsylvania was +3. It went to +5. And here's one that went down. Wisconsin, it was +9, and it did go down to +3. Well, we'll see. But overall, the polls are going up for Kamala, down for Donald. And listen to some of these. Here are some numbers that really are incredible. First of all, 18 to 25-year-olds +31 for Kamala. Talk about a landslide. That is incredible. +31. That is more than anybody was getting from those young people even before. This is enormous. Women are +27. I'll tell you, the numbers are huge. In fact, there's only one group in the United States of America that is out here admitting that they're voting for Donald Trump. What a surprise. Old white men without an education. So uneducated white people who are old, they say they're voting for Donald. Aside from that, who would want this idiot? And in fact, that's what the numbers are showing. People don't want her. Now, we know this. You do have to be careful, because if you get people so excited that the election is over, they might not show up. So you don't want that to happen. And I'm sure that's why Kamala downplays everything. And in fact, they are joking on MSNBC that the only poll that Kamala wants to know about is the Times Siena poll, because it consistently shows that Donald is very close, that it's almost a tie, or even a tie. And the point being, Kamala does not want to come across as having won this, because she doesn't want to depress the turnout. So anyway, that's the story there. Here's what Michael's saying right now. I heard some folks on MSNBC talk about exactly what you said, that 8 years ago, people were ashamed to vote for him, so polls were overstating Hillary. This time, people are afraid to say they aren't voting for him. So the thought is the polls are overstated for Trump. I think that's where it is, Michael. I really do. I think people do not want to say that they're not voting for Trump. They don't want to say it. But I think they're not. And I know why they're not. Because there's something wrong with the man. I mean, he's out here selling brand new digital trading cards. He says he's doing it because there's this tremendous outcry of people begging for new digital trading cards with pictures of Donald dancing. The man's sick. Then he said he's a very beautiful man. And then he followed that up by saying, "Oh, I'm kidding." Who would even say any of this? Kidding or not kidding? It's just ridiculous. So anyway, he could do what he wants, and he can lose it any way he wants. If he's happy losing it this way, no problem. He's collected millions of dollars, which he probably is not paying his attorneys, and he's probably hiding it somewhere so that maybe he'll have a few dollars when he gets out of jail. Of course, what are the chances that he'll ever be free again once they put him in there? Yeah, see, you're thinking about the Manhattan case. That's 4 years, and they probably wouldn't give him more than 30 days. If they do that, and I hope Merchan does it. I mean, Judge Merchan could give him 30 or 60 days just to send a message. You can't mess with us. I'm not sure he'll do that. I wish he would, but I have not a lot of confidence. People say, how could you break all these laws and not go to jail? In fact, it leads some people to believe that he didn't break the law. But in fact, the courts are sort of afraid. And if they have anything to be afraid of, it would be the fact that Donald threatens people. He wants to kill everybody. Wanted to kill Milley, General Milley. Apparently he was doing something Donald didn't like. He wanted to kill Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. And then he said, well, maybe he deserves it. Yeah, so Donald's not a nice man. And I'll tell you this. At this time in American history, I think people have decided it's time for somebody nice. And I think the numbers are telling you that Kamala is either running away with this election or soon to run away with this election. I think so. Okay, we might come back to some of that in a minute. And by the way, we do, like I say, we do in 15 minutes have Jim Maudlin coming on to talk about how the Trumpers feel about what's happening to them at this point. Now, they may feel nothing's happening to them, and that's understandable too, because that's over on Earth 2. But here on Earth 1, it's a slightly different story. We'll come back. Let's talk about Israel. So, Bibi Netanyahu spoke to the United Nations today, the General Assembly, and I think it was pretty interesting that half the General Assembly had refused to even show up. And they don't like the fact that Israel is, in one place, killing civilians. And Netanyahu said, and actually I believe him, he said they're going to great lengths to try to protect the civilians there. They're dropping leaflets, they're calling people on cell phones, they're really making a giant effort. I think they probably are, to let people know that the bombs are coming and you better get out of there. Now, the problem is, I don't know where they would go. They certainly can't go to Egypt, because Egypt has said, you give us $1 billion a year, we love it. But if you send these Palestinians to Egypt, we're going to fight. The heck with the billion. See, they don't want the Palestinians there. And that's a problem all throughout the Middle East and always has been. So we're not going to solve that one here. But the one thing that I think is a solution is for people all over the world to recognize that the United States and China and Russia could, but they won't. But they could provide protection for Israel, protection for the Palestinians, which wouldn't be needed, because despite the fact that the Palestinians pretend that Israel's coming to get them, clearly Israel isn't going to bother anybody. But now, if you come and kill their people, cut their heads off, their children, yeah, then they may want to come and do something to you. So, yeah, it's complicated. It always has been. The Middle East has always been enormously complicated. But one thing is for sure, and I've said this recently on here, and I've said it everywhere else, you should know that what's going on in the Middle East is focused on Israel. It is. Israel is not a side issue. Israel is not something that pops up every 10 years just because, accidentally somebody throws a bomb somewhere. No. It's a constant problem going back to 1948. The Palestinians and many of the Arabs do not want Israel to survive. And Israel is going to survive. And in fact, they're going to fight to survive. And in the process, there's some civilians who are going to be killed. And remember this. One of the reasons that they're killed is because the civilians are used as protection for the Palestinian leaders in Hamas. So they want a shield, and they take a bunch of Palestinians and put them out in front of them. And then when they get killed, Hamas yells, they're out to get our citizens. They're out to kill civilians, innocent people, as if they care about innocent people. They don't. They say they want to destroy Israel, and they do want to destroy Israel. Greg asks, why hasn't Harris or Biden met with Netanyahu in the last 2 times he's been here? And no, the question has nothing to do with Trump. No, it has everything to do with Trump. Of course it does. There's no question that Trump is on Netanyahu's side. That's why he runs around saying that if you're Jewish and you don't vote for Trump, well, then it's your fault for what finally happens. As I've said before, Donald finally got exactly where everybody else has always been. Blame the Jews. What the heck? That seems to always work up to a point, but it certainly does have an impact, and certainly Donald has now got there. No, Donald's in the middle of this. So, no, you can't put the question to somebody and then say, well, this has nothing to do with Trump. It has everything to do with Trump. But it also has to do with Netanyahu, who approved of all the money, millions and millions of dollars that were sent to the Palestinians prior to the attack on Israelis. In fact, Qatar called Netanyahu and asked, they said, do you want us to continue doing this? And Netanyahu said, absolutely. Keep the money going. And you see, this is one of the problems that people have with what's going on and what did happen. And that is that it was funded by Netanyahu himself. I hate to say it, but Israel paid to have their own people killed. That may not have been the intention, but it is what they did. It's exactly what they did. Now, that may be the reason that some of the protesters feel that Israel is totally at fault. But I wouldn't go that far. But I will go as far as to say that Israel has caused a lot of its own problems recently by refusing to support the two-state solution. Now, I know that there are those who will say, why would you do a two-state solution when you've got the people who are in that other state attempting to destroy you? But again, it's a pretty simple solution. You put up protection for the Israelis, not just by the United States, but by other countries like China. And I can tell you right now that some of this nonsense would have been stopped very quickly if China had been part of the protection for Israel. And in return, Israel could have been part of the process for rebuilding a powerfully successful economic group of people in Gaza. Could have happened. Could have been done. Of course, could have, but it's not. And so we have to deal with the reality of where we are. And the reality is not good. And the reality is that when they say from the river to the sea, they're talking about wiping Israel off the face of the earth. And so naturally, any friend of Israel is going to say, defend yourself. And if we can help, we're going to help. And the United States does help. And anything that we did hold back, we held back to try to save the lives of some civilians. That we did. How much we held back, I don't know. We say we held back I guess a 200,000-pound bomb or 2,000. I don't know, but a bomb, big one. And here's the thing. We were trying to diffuse a very violent situation that's, as we sit here right now, on the way to escalating out of control. Hezbollah in Lebanon has been lobbing rockets across their border, and these are not the Hamas rockets. These are missiles that are incredibly damaging. They're powerful. They can hurt you. They're easily set to go to a specific place. So Israel's got to respond. They do. They can't let this go on. They can't let somebody on the other side of Israel in the north shoot rockets into their population. They can't do it. So as much as everybody says, well, a 21-day ceasefire might help, I don't see how it would help anyway, because after all these years, people have stopped shooting a number of times. And when they have, it's quieted down for a minute. And then boom, it's right back again. Every 5-10 years, they're killing each other over there, which is a common thing in the Middle East. Arabs killing Arabs, Arabs killing Jews. And in fact, just a whole bunch of people who are angry with each other and not about to solve any problems yet. But at some point, there has to be a solution, and it's going to have to be to build up the Palestinians. It's going to have to be. Now, when you do it, you're going to have to make sure that Israel has complete protection. Otherwise, you're asking for a disaster, because the Palestinians have no understanding of what they're even getting into. Now, I have friends who say that I've got this all wrong. They say that the Palestinians know, and that the other Arab countries know, exactly what they're getting into. And that essentially the view among Arabs and Muslims is that in the long run, they will prevail, even if they have to win in heaven or somewhere. And that ultimately the Israelis will be destroyed. I don't know how they think that's going to happen. You know, Israel's got 100 nuclear weapons. 100. That's powerful weaponry. Now, they're not going to use it unless it becomes apparent that everybody's headed for suicide. Well, then they may fight back with their nuclear weapons. But as long as people think that everybody's going to try to avoid World War III and move everything forward in a way that could eventually protect life, that's different than Vladimir Putin saying, in 15 minutes, we're going to eviscerate 10 American cities. Now, Putin does say that he's going to do something like that, but he says it all the time. Does that mean we shouldn't believe him ever? It doesn't mean that, but here's the problem. Do you really believe that Russia is prepared to totally commit suicide, because using those nuclear weapons would be suicide. Using nuclear weapons in Ukraine, just the small ones, as they call them. Well, they're not so small because they're bigger than the nuclear bomb that we dropped on Hiroshima. More powerful than what we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So there's no doubt that you'd have to be crazy to use these weapons. Now, people say, well, if you put Vladimir Putin in a corner, he's going to do it. Well, depends on what you mean by a corner. If you mean by a corner that he's got no way out by which he could attack and achieve victory in Ukraine, well, then I'm going to answer you're right. He's going to be in a corner. That would be true. But he's not going to use those nuclear weapons, because to use those would wipe out everything he's got. You know, that's the thing about this. If you attack somebody with nuclear weapons, you might as well say, come and get us too, because no one can win. Everybody will shoot down everybody. And, you know, all we'll be able to say is, see you on Mars, because we won't be operating here on Earth. Not a chance. So I'm on the side that says no one's ever going to use them. I don't think Russia will use them. I don't think China will. I don't think Iran would use them if they had them. And then again, if anybody wanted to use them, there would also be somebody that would be standing by the side of the person, quote, pushing the button, saying, sorry, I'm not going to let you push that button, because if you do, my family will be dead. See, nobody wants this. Now, I understand nobody wanted World War I and we got it, but they knew that that wasn't the annihilation of civilization. In this case, we know that it is the annihilation of civilization. That's why I think people take the position that they do, which is they're not going to worry about nuclear weapons, because who would be crazy enough to use them? Well, we're going to hope that we've got this figured out and that Donald is the one who will not use them. Yeah, yes, Greg, it's mutual assured destruction. That's correct. And everybody knows that. And if you know it, you can't use them. Now, there is a lot of discussion about this. You know, two of the people who I really like, Waltz and Sagan, two professors, experts in nuclear weapons, and they traveled the country years ago debating whether it was a good or bad thing to let countries get nuclear weapons. Waltz said it was a good thing to let them get it because no one can use it. On the other hand, Sagan said, if you let people get their hands on these weapons, understand what will be the result. They will shoot them off and people will die. And you can't argue with that one. That probably would happen, except for the idea that people don't want to commit suicide. I think suicide is a powerful part of this entire conversation. And I think a lot of people don't want to kill themselves. They don't want to kill their families. They don't want to kill anybody, anything. They would like to be left alone. But as unfortunate as it may be, people don't want to leave you alone because the problem of nuclear weapons for some people is simply that we have no taste for using them. But we'd better use them soon. If we want to die, then we should use them. So anyway, I'm going to say Putin won't use them. And the United States certainly is doing everything it can to diminish even the slight possibility. On the other hand, Ukraine wants to attack deep into Russia. And the reason they want to do it is because nobody's ever been able to do it. Ukraine has the capability based on the weapons that we've given them. And they want to show Russia that there's a price to be paid for continuing to try to destroy Ukraine. So that's the easy understanding. But add some other things into this. For example, what about Poland? You know, if the Russians got a hold of Ukraine, they would be attacking Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, all those Baltic countries. It would be disastrous. Now you got Finland and you've got Sweden there with powerful weapons, which are their weapons, and they could use them. Not even nuclear weapons. It's just not where we want to go. Because if we do, we're going to find, 1 million people dead right now in Russia, they say. I mean, you could be to 2 million. You could be to 3 million. You know what Donald says in all of this? I'm sure you know. He says we have to make these people stop fighting, whatever the cost, because we want to stop World War III. And we just don't want this. We don't want all these dead people. We want to save the world. We want peace. In fact, another man said that. How long ago? 38 adds 7, no, 86. 86 years ago. Neville Chamberlain said we would have peace in our time if you simply gave the land to Adolf Hitler. They said Adolf Hitler doesn't want to hurt anybody. Adolf Hitler doesn't want to get involved in another world war. Adolf Hitler is, he's willing to do this, but how far he would go? Probably not very far. According to our so-called experts. The problem, of course, is that he's gone very far. Ukraine is fighting back with a great deal of power. And if the weapons are able to go deep into Russia, well, then Putin might think about nuclear weapons, but if he does, he will be sorry for it. See, that's the problem here. You're going to punish yourself in order to make Vladimir Putin pay a price. And I can tell you right now, punishing yourself is not going to be the answer to this. You're not going to stop people from talking. If they want to say crazy things about Christianity or Catholicism or any other religion, they're going to do whatever they want to do. So it is very important to recognize that you could be playing with fire if you try to get in the middle of all this disagreement without a real plan to solve the problem. Donald has no plan. Donald talks about Christians. He says, Christians, I love you. Just vote for me now, and you'll never have to vote again. First, he does think that he could be a dictator. And that's an amazing thing in itself, that number one, he thinks he could be one. And number two, that the United States doesn't recognize what this is about. Now, I understand a lot of people do, but I'm saying that there are millions who do not understand where Donald is going with this. He'll tear up the world. Now, maybe that's what Vladimir Putin has told him to do. And if that's the case, we got trouble. So with all that trouble, I think what we need to do is go get some dinner, because that'll sort of solve at least some of it. You go get yourself a good dinner, and then you'll feel much better. So go to Wendy's. Wendy's is at 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road, and they've got great food. They've got wings. They've got smoked meat. They've got hamburgers, cheeseburgers, patty melts with lots of onions. They've got salads. They've got great drinks. Like I say, iced tea is for me, but they have drinks for everybody. And it's just a great restaurant for people who are hungry. You go in there, you're going to get a lot to eat. You're going to enjoy the company. It's a good place. That's Wendy's. 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road. And you can go right down the way to Wendy's in Defiance and get the same great food in Defiance, Missouri. So whether you're in Defiance or whether you're in Chesterfield, same great food. You'll love it. That's Wendy's. Now, at 4506 Hampton, you're going to get some jewelry, and it is good jewelry. You're going to get lots of great prices if you want to buy. You're going to get good prices if you want to sell as well. You can buy and sell coins also, in addition to jewelry. I've said many times, and it's no exaggeration. Those cases of jewelry are all over this business. Great business. Jewels on Hampton, 4506 Hampton. I promise you, you'll love it. You'll get a great buy. And then also, if you need your watch fixed, bring it in, because this is not a Trump deal. This is a real deal. They'll fix your watch. You'll go home very happy. You don't need a $100,000 Trump watch. All you need is good people like Al and AJ at Jewels on Hampton. Now, the St. Louis Suit Company will do everything for you when it comes to buying a brand new suit, shirt, shoes, hat, you name it, overcoat, they've got it. That's the St. Louis Suit Company. They're at the corner of Forsyth and Central. They just do great business because they're a great place to be. And I can only tell you that when you go there and you see those $5 ties, you'll be glad you went, because those ties are worth it every day of the week. Silk ties, beautiful patterns on them. Honestly, you couldn't pay $40, $50 for these ties anywhere else, because they'd be expensive. They'd be more. But here, $5, you'll love it. And if you're getting married, well, you got to go as well, because they do everything for wedding attire, and everyone involved the buyers, everybody, they all know the place to go for your wedding is the St. Louis Suit Company in Clayton. They've been there for 30 years. They are truly great. Now, it is Friday, and as I say often, Friday is Spaghetti and Meatballs Day at Telena's. Actually, James Ingram came up with this idea years ago, and it's a good one. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the best thing they have there is the spaghetti and meatballs. But don't get me wrong, I've never eaten the other things, so I don't know. If I'm going to eat my calories, I just go in and get those spaghetti and meatballs, and I don't worry about the rest. And it's good food. It is excellent. They're over by Deerberg's at 141 and Olive in the plaza there. You can't miss them. They're right there on the corner. The food is excellent. It's an Italian restaurant that really can't be beat anywhere. People always say, oh, is that over on the hill? I always say, no, they wish that the food on the hill were this good. No, this is Italian food, okay, but it's better than everybody else. You'll know if you go there. Try it out. Mehdi, my good friend, who's been here for 40 years running this place, he'll tell you he does everything he can to get you the best food, best Italian food. You will love Telena's. Okay, so, I was talking about Netanyahu at the United Nations, and the UN was empty. Everybody was refusing to sit in on his speech. And I have to tell you, his speech was so out of touch with reality that it really worried me. Not that we can do a thing about it, because we're not in their election. But Netanyahu is not worried about the hostages. He has said as much very clearly. Netanyahu is not worried about the problems that he's caused with Hamas, because he thinks he's got himself protected. And at the moment, I guess he is protected. But with that in mind, I want to talk to somebody who, I don't know. I mean, Jim, you tell me.
What do you want to talk about, Mark?
How are you feeling? I mean, your candidate's getting beat up pretty badly.
Where do you see that at?
Well, the polls.
The polls show neck and neck. And the percentage, Nate Silver still says Trump's 63% favorite to win the election.
I think he has backed off of that. I think you better check it. I think he's now saying that there's a better chance that Kamala will win. But I heard something that he was saying the other day. So you can check that out. But Nate Silver doesn't run this, so that's not the point either. And I'll say that back in 2016, when Nate Silver was saying that Hillary would win, I wasn't so sure. I was worried, but I'm not worried about this one. I mean, Kamala Harris has the entire country so gigantically in support of her. And I know that there's some people on your side. I kid around, but there's some people on your side who say that Kamala's stupid and she's a communist and all the rest. I mean, you don't believe any of that, do you?
Well, I don't think she's very smart when it comes to what you're talking about. I mean, I don't know how many of her speeches you've seen over the last 4 years where she just completely switches from one subject to another, and then she starts that laugh that she's got. And to think that that could possibly be a president is scary. I don't know if that's worse her or Joe Biden, to be honest with you.
Why? Because you think that she's lost in her statements? Is that?
Yeah, I just don't think that I don't think she's a very intelligent person. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination she's ready to run a country, let alone a state. I mean, run a state, let alone a country. I mean, I wouldn't hire her to run a 7-Eleven.
Well, by the way, Donald couldn't get hired to run a 7-Eleven because you've got to have a clear background, and this man is a convicted felon. He couldn't get a job at the mall. You know that, right? I mean, if you go to the mall and you write down, I've been convicted on 34 felony counts, but I'm really a good guy, you know the mall employers will kick you out.
What happens when that gets overturned?
Well, first of all, he thought he was going to overturn this thing in New York, the $500 million. And after yesterday's hearing, it appears, no one's sure yet, but it appears that one's done. He's not going to get that one overturned. And as far as Mershon's case, what is there out there to overturn? What did they do wrong? The grand jury brought the case on probable cause. They tried the case in front of a jury with very strict instructions. Everybody says the instructions were probably stricter than they would have been for a regular person. And, Donald just sort of gets a pass because no one wants to. First, they don't want to get in a fight with him because he'll threaten to kill you. That's a problem. Well, wait a second. Am I wrong?
Let me. Yeah, you are wrong. And let me ask you about
hang Mike Pence.
What's that?
Hang Mike Pence.
Hang Mike Pence. What are you talking about?
Come on. January 6th, the people out there were screaming, hang Mike Pence. And when Donald was asked in the White House what to do about protecting Mike Pence, Donald said, well, maybe he deserves to be hung.
Oh, come on. You take that seriously?
I would take it very seriously, yeah.
I've never even heard that before, but anyway.
Really?
What do you think about the person from the Department of Justice going into Parsons' office the other day, the whistleblower from the Department of Justice, saying that we have known since before the first assassination attempt that there is 5 groups hunting Trump. 3 of them are foreign, 2 of them are here in the United States, and they've known this and still allowed almost 2 assassinations, knowing all these facts. What do you think about that?
Well, in the first place, I don't think that they're allowing anything. I think that's a conspiracy theory. I think that the Secret Service is doing everything that they can think of to protect Trump. This country, I don't think anybody wants an assassination. Do you know how many people make jokes to me, and I don't think it's funny, about, how did those people miss? And I think that's terrible. And they say it all the time. Everybody, really, too many people do. And look, I think serious people do not want Donald Trump hurt. I certainly don't.
Well, how do they let a kid get within 500 yards of the ex-president with an AK-47 when there was already a police officer that climbed a ladder and seen him and then climbed back down and allowed him to get shots off and kill one person?
I guess you better start taking away people's guns.
Oh, come on.
I mean, they
Yeah.
do this.
Those
They
guys
do.
own those guns legally.
Yeah.
They do this in other parts of the world. No, you don't. You don't have a right to a legal gun anyway. There shouldn't be a legal gun. You know, the Second Amendment doesn't say you have a right to a gun anyway. That's the Supreme Court that says that. The Second Amendment says that the state has the right to protect itself. You
Is
know,
that what
well,
you would say to the robber in your home with a knife to your wife's throat?
no one's getting into my house. My dog will get them. A dog is safe. You'll be safe. You're safe. You can get on the camera, by the way. Don't be shy. But look,
I'm not shy. I'm just busy.
okay, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state says nothing about you having a gun. Nothing.
So if I can't own a gun legally and I give away all my guns, what's to make the criminals that already don't do it right do it for us too, so that we're all on the same playing ground?
Just get all their guns.
How are you going to get all the criminals' guns when they can't even catch the criminals that are doing it now?
Oh, they can catch them. They catch them after they commit a crime.
Not really. Small percentage.
Well, how come our crime is at the 50-year low?
Because they can't catch anybody.
Oh, come on. Now
That's
listen.
true. I mean,
the crime in the United States is at a 50-year low. And
Put
immigrants.
it this way: I own a
immigrants do
car
nothing.
dealership. When a car gets stolen, I can tell the police they're driving right down Gravois, right in front of my business right now, and they will not pursue them because they have not committed a violent crime yet.
that's a fact.
Now, if they pull out a gun and shoot me, then they might arrest them. But how does that help my 4 kids grieve me?
Well, let me ask you this.
If I have a gun, I can prevent the entire situation.
Well, let me ask you
And
this.
take one other person off the street that clearly isn't helping our society.
Okay. So I'm just asking you this. When my car was stolen, how is it that the police went out and got it right away?
Because they can
Right
recover
away.
it once they're not in it.
No, they got the car with the people in it.
Sounds like they went above and beyond for you, which they don't seem to do for most of us.
Yeah. Well,
But I can give you 4 instances where I could tell them where the car was and they didn't give a shit and I had to go get it myself. And we're talking some real happy, savory characters that, probably should have been in jail.
Yeah.
That all probably have illegal guns. That aren't just going to go hand them in when I do because I follow the law.
Yeah. Listen, if you would put your guns away, in fact, give them back to the government, I mean, they'll give you a few bucks for them. And then if the government would go out and get all the guns from the criminals, which they would do, they'd get most of them. This
Just
would
like
be
they
a
can
lot
stop the
safer
drug
place.
trafficking into our countries. I think they'd probably do as good of keeping guns away as they would keeping fentanyl and heroin and cocaine out of our country. Because they've done a stellar job of that over the last couple decades.
well, I mean, look who we've had as our borders are.
Well, I mean, they just kind of let anything come across the border now.
Well, first of all, that's not true.
That is true. I can show you videos of Venezuelans swarming the beach.
Look.
Of Mexicans running around a wall that goes out into the water 50 feet.
Those people who come over here commit no crimes.
Oh,
Almost nothing.
Crime.
Almost
There's
nothing.
millions of articles out there about the illegal immigrants.
what about the police officer in St. Louis the other day?
Well, no. See, that's the thing. Somebody hears a story and then they multiply it into things that don't exist. Because if you go and get the statistics from the United States government, the crimes that are committed in this country are committed by native-born American citizens, not by immigrants. Those immigrants come over here and they go hide. They don't want to get anybody to hurt them.
Percentage, when there's 0.5% of this immigrant versus an American citizen, the numbers are heavily skewed. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe the majority of people that come across the border are here for a better life and not to harm anyone and nice, happy people. But you'll still always have a percentage that aren't. So for you to sit there and say that those people aren't committing crimes is horribly inaccurate. Because everybody's committing crimes, whether you're whatever nationality, whatever race, whatever anything.
I'm just saying that relative to regular Americans, the crimes committed by immigrants are really so small that for us to worry about the immigrants, why don't we worry about whoever's left that's committing crimes, which is very little anyway, because we're at a 50-year low for all crimes.
If I have 1,000 Americans in a room and 500 of them commit crimes, and I have 100 Venezuelans or Mexicans in a room and 10 of them commit crimes, there's still a larger percentage of the foreign people committing the crimes.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that there is actually a larger percentage, but when you try and compare the numbers in masses, you can't compare that number in a mass.
Okay.
And
listen, guys,
take all that aside for half a second.
Yeah.
Let's say we just went in and handed our guns to the government. Great. Now we've given the people even more control to run our lives.
Yeah, I love the
Eventually, we're going to
government.
need those guns one day to overthrow the government that is horribly against us and only has their own agenda, whether
Well-
it's the Democratic side, the Republican side, or any other side.
Okay. I apologize, guys, because I got to get out of here because we're out of time. And all I can say is I do love the government and I trust them. But, you know, so that's another difference between Earth 1 and
I
Earth
believe
2.
in unicorns.
Okay. Guys, sell cars because I know you're good at that. And by the
I feel
yeah,
like
well, I got to run out of here. I'm going way over. Anyway, come back again another time. I would love to do this with you.
I'll get them on the screen next week.
Okay.
I'm in.
Okay, great. For right now, Jim Maudlin, Mark Kaysen, the secret man. What's your name?
Sean.
Sean. Sean is here. We love you, Sean. And for the St. Louis Suit Company and for Wenty's and for Jules on Hampton and for Telena's with the great spaghetti and meatballs on Fridays. This is Friday. I'm Mark Kaysen. This is Showdown. Good night.